Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
Hey, good morning on Coffee with Democrats. We are here today with a special guest, Sarah Gray. We are so excited to have her. Sarah, we've been communicating for, it seems like a year, and this is the first time we've ever met. And I'm just so glad that we are able to meet at this time. This is so fun for us to do this and have this conversation. And it's so important for us to be able to convey to everybody that's listening in your story and how your story can be an inspiration to other people. Before we get into that, let's talk some real serious. Well, first of all, I got to make an announcement. I got to do some housekeeping.
Okay.
The housekeeping is this is going to be on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and on Twitter Live. So for all the people who are listening into this conversation, please share this with all of your friends. Share it with everybody that are followers on social media. We really want to explore getting the word out for Sarah and getting more support for her. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is through the support of the people who watch this show and the listeners. So please share this story. And then we've got another thing that is extremely important that we have to talk about every single time. This is Coffee with Democrats. I mean, this is coffee. This is coffee time for us. I mean, I forgot to bring my coffee, but I've got there we go, my beverage of choice. And
I was kicking myself for not making my tea before I sat down. I was like, well, I guess I'm stuck with water today.
It's good. It's good. So, but we do have to talk about what is your morning beverage? Is it coffee? Is it a coffee substitute? What is your go-to first thing in the morning to help you get energized and ready for the day?
Yeah. So every morning I have a big glass of ice water. That is it's like the first thing I'm thinking as soon as my eyes open. And then I love tea. I have all the teas. So I'll usually have a nice hot cup of tea in the morning too.
Did you go through that stage where you bought those cakes that are of tea that are about this big around, have them imported directly from India or from, some of the places overseas?
I have had some I've bought some tea from a local place that they come in like a little tube almost, and they're like little round tea bags, and they were wonderful. I mean, I absolutely would buy them again.
Those are something from my past, and I've got a real good friend in Illinois who has saved up all of his teas for so many years. It's like it was great for him. I've never been that much of a tea drinker because of heartburn, but I do know that there are certain teas that will help with that, and I just haven't explored that. So I need to follow your advice and follow your lead and try to gain some more information about how tea can help me get rid of some of that indigestion. So
there's a tea for everything. You just got to go look for it.
Exactly right. There is a tea for everything. So again, today, folks, we are talking with Sarah Gray. I'm going to save your voice for just a little bit, Sarah, because you're going to be talking a lot here in a little bit. Sarah is Cherokee, Muskogee, and Kiowa, a dedicated community advocate and communications professional. She's formally announced her candidacy for Tulsa County Commissioner District Number 2. So I'm going to just kind of pass down here a little bit because I'm going to let you talk about more of your education and things like that. But I do have something in this conversation or in what I read that I want to share with people. Here it is. The one thing that I really appreciate about what Sarah has put out on her website, and for anybody who wants to follow it, it's grayforok.com. GRAYFOROK.com. Go to that webpage and get to know Sarah. She will be talking to us a little bit about what she's doing. She's building this website. This is not something that is a final product, but it is currently under a work in progress. So Gray's upbringing was deeply impacted by her access or lack thereof to public resources and social services, from experiencing homelessness as a teenager and navigating non-traditional educational paths to ultimately become a first-generation graduate degree holder. Her journey is a testament to what is possible when a community leans in to support those most in need. This experience has fueled her lifelong commitment to breaking down barriers for others whenever and wherever she can. I just love that statement when I read that on your website, and I wanted to share that with everybody. I think that it's so important for us, and also something else that you wrote on here is, in the commissioner's office, I'll draw upon my expertise in communications and public relations, my deep connections to the communities most underserved throughout Tulsa County, and my unwavering commitment to building a government that reflects our values and priorities. Together, we'll create a Tulsa County where everyone has a seat at the table and a voice in decisions that shape our future. I just think that's just an amazing testament from, it's naive of me and probably ignorant of me to say this, but I do believe it's one of those rags to riches stories that I think people really need to be inspired by. And that's why I think that Sarah, when I said earlier, she is an inspiration, and she is somebody that we all need to get behind and support and get to know. So tell us, Sarah, thanks for coming on Coffee with Democrats. We really appreciate you coming on here, and we want to get to know you a little bit more. So if you don't mind, can I ask you some kind of personal questions about, tell us about your upbringing, where you were born, how you were raised, and then let's talk about your educational pursuits. So I'll just turn it over to you and let you talk about those things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And, I've kind of made it a point to be a very open book over the last however many years of my life, just because of a lot of the different things that I've experienced in life. And both as a kid and as an adult, there was a long stretch of time where I was very guarded with everything about me. And a lot of that was because I carried a lot of shame or embarrassment for things that I felt like were, so different that like I should be embarrassed. And so I've definitely made a point the last few years to shake all of that off and just be extremely honest about my life. And so happy to answer all the questions. I'll start with some basics. So I'm born and raised on the Muskogee Nation Reservation, born right there in Tulsa, and spent almost my entire life here on the res. I was in California for about 4 years. Whenever I was married, I lived on a Marine Corps base out there in 29 Palms, which is deep, deep in the desert. That's where both of my kids were born. I was always afraid when they were little. I was like, are they going to think they're Californians because they were born out here? But yeah, I went to school kind of all over the place whenever I was younger. Spent a lot of my childhood in Kiefer, which is a really small town south of Tulsa, and spent a lot of my time also in Sapulpa. I have in my release, about 14, 15, I ended up experiencing teenage homelessness, which I really had no idea how common of a thing that was. I had a very loving family. I grew up with my mom and a big sister, but we did live in a very, resource deficient environment, just all of us. And so there were some different struggles in my family with mental health and just some domestic issues that eventually ended up with me leaving home. And then I spent the next few years just kind of it's hard to really put a name to it. So there's, times when I was like very much literally without a home, without shelter. And then there are times when, I was lucky enough to sleep on friends' couches, sleep on friends' floors, just kind of bouncing around for a long time. And that pretty quickly ended or moved over to me being dropped out of high school,
Right.
which is such a, when I look back at it, it's so interesting to me because when I was in second grade, I got moved up a grade. And I was always in all the gifted and talented classes, how they do all of these things. And so I loved education. My reading level has always been through the roof since I was a little kid. That's why I got moved up a grade. And so I've always loved school. It was just that, we went through a lot of struggles as a family. And I think it was probably a mixture of not having access to resources and then also not fully knowing what resources were available. And then I'm sure there was a lot of stigma involved there too with reaching out for some of this help. So it's just kind of a perfect storm that ended up with me leaving home at such a young age. I did come back to school, thankfully. I ended up graduating from an alternative school out of Sapulpa and graduated right when I was right at 16. And that following year, I filled out my FAFSA by myself, had no idea what I was doing. I just knew there was like this document I said I had to fill out. And then, I went off to college right after that. I
And
ended up taking a year off.
Where was college?
So originally I went to college at Northeastern State University. That's where my freshman year was. But I was 17 my entire freshman year. So I didn't turn 18 until March of the spring semester. So, and then I'm also coming like straight off the streets, basically.
Right.
So, and I'm sure like that was part of a big driver for me. Like, oh, if I go to college, I'll have a dorm room, like I'll,
Right.
Be an adult, have all my things going on. But yeah, I had a pretty unconventional journey through my higher ed. I went to Northeastern State. I took a year off. I was not prepared for college at all, which is unsurprising. Going from being a homeless teenager into a full-blown academic environment like
Right.
that was a bit of a culture shock. I transferred to Oklahoma State University, went there for the majority of my undergrad. And then I ended up finishing my degrees when I lived in California. There's I don't know if it's considered private or for-profit college out there that serves service members and their families called National University. And so that's where I finished my last semester or so of college courses for my bachelor's degree. So I have a BA in political science and I have a master's degree from the same in strategic communications.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And it's perfect. I mean, it was a perfect fit for me. California was where I kind of cut my teeth in progressive politics. I started driving 2 hours each way because I was in such a remote place to volunteer with the Riverside County Young Democrats out there. Ended up joining the board as a communications director and had a wonderful experience there, reviving the Young Democrats chapter in the second largest county in the state of California. And, just kind of been going nonstop since then.
Well, it's pretty amazing. Having a brother who was in the Marine Corps, 29 Palms means something. So
Yeah.
was that you or was that your significant other that was in the Marine Corps?
That was my now ex-husband. So he served in the Marine Corps for about 15 years. He's the father of my children. I moved out there with him and he had actually been stationed there for almost his entire career since he's in the infantry. Just about all of it, except for when he was here on recruiting duty.
Okay.
So he was very familiar with the area. I did not want to move there. I was like, the middle of the desert, really? But then after I got there, I mean, that was an experience that was so formative to me, not just as a professional who I am now, but also as a mother. I feel like I learned how to be a mom. When I was out there, I learned a new way to be in community with people when I was out there. And it's something that had a massive impact on me. I moved out there. I was pregnant. My kid's dad ended up deploying a couple months after we got there. So right before I delivered my baby, and it's my first child. So I was out in the middle of the desert, brand new mom, husband deployed. And there were women who lived on my street in my cul-de-sac, and they would come and knock on my door. And I'm like, these are strangers. I don't know you. And they're like, let us come in. We want to hold the baby. Well, let's do your dishes. Let's do all of these things. And, they were moms. And I truly, I tell them as often as I can, like, I learned how to be a mom from watching y'all. I learned how to be a better member of a community because of y'all. I get I'm a little surprised. I'm getting a little misty eyed now, but I truly care about these women so much. Because it was an experience that I was expecting to be something so miserable, in the middle of the desert, so hot. Like, I didn't know anyone, had no family. I'm just from so far away. And, I was just blown away by like the love and the compassion I was shown by strangers who became like family to me. And I take that with me into a lot of the experiences that I have now, when I'm meeting people, because it's like, this is my neighbor. And you never know, like, we could be a huge impact in each other's lives. We could be great support systems for each other. And you just never know. So I appreciate that experience so deeply for so many other reasons too. But I really did learn a new and beautiful way to be in community by moving out there and kind of being all alone.
Sure. Again, I've never experienced this, but from what I've heard, it appears that base commanders' wives usually form, I don't know what they're called, a committee or a group of ladies that and men who will actually, they spend time just getting to know everybody that's new that's there, and then that will be translated down, like to not just the base commander, but also to like the sergeant or whoever that is in charge of a platoon, that they'll have leadership roles, and but then the ladies themselves who have been there for the longest seem like they understood this, and they'll develop these groups like a welcome wagon to welcome new people in. Do you have a name for that? What was the?
I cannot remember what the official. I'm sure it'll come to me as soon as we get off the call, but there is a group within battalions, where they really do try to like keep track of everyone too. They're like, who's having a baby soon, like who is going through XYZ. And they do, we'll do baby showers for women who you don't know, but it's like, oh, her husband is, or partner is like, deployed with the rest of them. And so, cause our battalion, my ex's battalion that he was in was a infantry unit. And so their deployments were pretty regular and kind of intense. And so it was great community. I think about it all the time. I'm like, how can we, duplicate some of that effort and attention that's put in? Because it really makes a huge impact, and it brings people out of what I was doing, which was holing up in my house, isolating myself in a sense, because I already felt isolated. It's something I've reflected on a lot since the pandemic.
Because absolutely. You could relate.
It's caused such loneliness in people and such feelings of isolation that, it does remind me of that time. And it's like, how do we be so much more intentional about reaching out to our neighbors and making sure they feel like they're, part of our community?
So I'm going to change just a little bit here. While you're in California, somehow you were either approached, or you approached somebody, or you heard about an organization called Young Democrats, and you became involved in that. Fill in kind of the gaps on that. How did you learn about Young Democrats, and why did you want to become involved?
Yeah. So I actually already knew about Young Democrats just from being in Oklahoma. I have a political science degree. And
Right.
so my freshman year of college, I got, brought into a group of extremely engaged people who did like Oklahoma intercollegiate legislature and all of that fun stuff. And so I had already been familiar with the organization. I was out there and I was also seeking community. I was seeking to like be involved with electoral campaigns. And so I just researched, I was currently in San Bernardino County, which is also massive.
Right.
But I saw like Riverside County Young Democrats looks like it's my closest option. It was about 2-hour drive,
Right.
depending on which side of the county they were meeting at. And I just reached out to I think the Facebook page probably. And I was like, hey, I
Okay.
just want to come and hang out, see what's going on, just meet everybody. Went out for, a couple meetings and made really quick friends with folks. And, they were seeking to like revive the board, make the board strong again so
Right.
that we could turn and focus on membership because membership had fallen off completely. And the social presence had fallen off completely. And so we're all just kind of sitting around a table having some pizza. And I was like, well, I'm getting my master's degree in communications right now. So, I know I'm not like from here, but I'm happy to support. And they were like, be the comms director. And I was like, okay, like if you guys are short. And I mean, it just worked really well. We had a wonderful team who took over as chair. We had just excellent people all the way around. We all worked so well together. And there was just a lot of life in that group. A lot of very different experiences in the group, and in group leadership, and just a willingness to work. We were definitely all on the younger end
Right.
of the Young Democrats at that time. And we were just hungry. I mean, there was a lot going on in electoral politics at the time, as there always is. But, we
And
were hungry to make something happen.
what year? What year are we talking about?
This would have been 2017.
Okay. So Trump's in office.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there seems like there was during that time frame, 2015 to 2017, seems like this nationwide apathy that took place that, like you said, groups were like disenfranchised for some reason. They just become disillusioned in some places and for some reason. And then this whole thing with Trump just, it ruined a lot of relationships. But anyway, 2017, that seems to be about the time where I could relate to what you're talking about, because that's about the same time that I saw a lot of other people around me, and including myself, starting to put our toes in the water and say, I think we want to get a little bit more involved and be more active and especially more vocal against some of the oppressive things that were being put out by Donald Trump and the Republican Party. So
absolutely. I mean, his tenure as president in my time in California, this is another thing. When I say there's so many different experiences from when I lived out there that have shaped core pieces of myself. We were pretty far south. It's the desert is on the southern end of California. And it was in this time period when we were seeing like mass housing of migrant families in detention centers. And it was, I can't remember which year, it may have been 2018. But ICE had started releasing so at this specific facility, they were housing families. So any adult there was there with a child, or a pair of adults were there with a child or children. So they had gotten so full, they were at max capacity, that they had started by bus bringing, or like those big vans had started releasing families, and everybody was sick. Everybody had the flu. Everybody was frail. I mean, they were just, I don't want to say emaciated, but they were sick. I mean, you could tell that they had been kept in really poor conditions. And ICE had started releasing them at different Greyhound stations by the dozens, at all hours, day and night, with zero coordination with municipalities, zero coordination with county governments, zero coordination with state representatives. They call them the assembly members there, zero coordination with anyone. So it's a federal agency, and they just start busing them over to Greyhound stations and dropping them off with no money, no direction, no anything. And it was horrifying. And it was happening right where we were. And so to see there was a mass mobilization between nonprofits and, centers of faith. And then like once the government officials started like figuring out what was going on, we had this massive coordination where we would have people waiting all day and all night long, 24 hours a day. We would have cars parked, waiting for people to be dropped off at these different stations, so that we could then take them to another location, get them food, get any kind of information that they had. It was wild. They were bringing kids over, no car seats. I transported many families in my car in my time supporting this effort. And it shook me in such a deep way to see it. And there was an experience where ICE had brought a family, and we had someone on the inside who let us know when people were coming, and they drove past a Greyhound station, and we had volunteers who went to follow them because they're like, where are they taking them? Are they just going to like push them out of the car somewhere, or not push, but like put them out somewhere?
Right.
And the driver of the vans, and there were children in there with no car seats, was just blowing through stop signs in residential areas, took the volunteers on basically a chase just to come back to the Greyhound station. And the people who were in that van told us they were laughing. One of them called and said, pull over, like it's my turn to lead. Like it was just a horrific experience. It's, witnessing things like this and witnessing like the harm that comes from inhumane policies. For me, at least, that's something that just shook me, and I will never forget what it felt like to hear their stories and to be there and wait for them. And it's, Trump's presidency was traumatic in a lot of ways. But it also really ignited a fire in me to use my voice, because I saw firsthand that, there's a lot of people who have a lot less power than I do. And I've never at that point had really considered myself someone with a lot of power. But I see my responsibility pretty clearly these days.
So you moved back to Oklahoma, and about the first time you and I communicated with each other online was probably after the 2022 election. And we had just a little bit of communication there. And your name got brought up that you were wanting to run for office. And your name has been kind of thrown around in a lot of different ways. So between that time and now, I'm going to touch on a subject that's not in that we talked about earlier, and that is libs for TikTok. You had what I would call, and again, I don't need for you to comment if you don't want to, but I would say I had this revelation that not only did you want to be an advocate for people of Oklahoma and the people who are the targets of these ultra MAGA extremists, you finally said, I'm fed up. If you want to do something about it, come on out here. Let's do something for charity. Put your fists up. Let's go to toe on this. If you want to see who can challenge this to a boxing match, let's do it. I was so proud of you when you did that. I really
Oh,
was.
thank you. I
And I
appreciate
know
it.
it's a hard thing for people to do, but you basically at that point said, I'm fighting extremism with extremism. And I'm going to take it to their level and let them know that this isn't going to be tolerated. And you basically shut her down. And
Yeah, she hasn't responded with the date yet. So
right,
we'll see. She did agree. I mean, the first thing that I'll say about all of that, number one, my offer still stands. I would love to host the Lips of TikTok Lady here for a charity boxing match. I think we could raise a lot of money. Truly, I feel like we could raise an insane amount of money with it for a good cause. But two, I have a very deep sense of fairness and
mhm,
justice that grounds me, that drives me. And I don't like bullies. And I'm sure a lot of this comes from not just my upbringing, but now I'm a mother. Experiences that I've had as a mom. I am a protective person of whenever it comes to my community, whenever it comes to people who, you know, don't have the same like levels of, access to power, access to resources, all of this stuff. So I don't like when people punch down. I
mhm,
don't like it because
right,
it's bullying. It's cowardly. I don't like it. And we see this time and time again with this account is that they will happily find a librarian who has like 50 followers on Twitter and run their life
right,
for months,
right,
potentially, years, you never know. But this account has like 1 million, 2 million, however many million followers. And they know exactly what they're doing when they target
right,
these individual people who are not public figures. They didn't ask to be in the limelight like this. Like they know what happens when they target them. It's a flood of trolls. It's a flood of threats. Bomb threats follow, whether or not like they want to acknowledge that there's that correlation. It seems pretty obvious to me. So I don't like it. Like stop punching down. And then for you to come and, Ryan Walters choosing, knowing exactly what the response is going to be. Ryan Walters chooses to, put you on this state library commission, which I'm not even sure if it actually exists. Still,
right,
I think she might be the only member. Um, it's like if you have so much to say about Oklahoma, you have so much to say about our schools and our children and the way we do things here. Come to Oklahoma. That's all I'm saying. Come here and help me raise some money for charity. Let's just handle it like that because, my kids don't go to school at the school that had bomb threats called into it multiple times for like a
right,
whole week in Tulsa. But there were threats that said, oh, everywhere, like anywhere around Tulsa right now could be it. And so I'm like, the fact that I'm sitting here, I'm like about to pull my kids out of school just for my own peace of mind. I just, it was too much. It was too much for me. It was always too much for me. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to the fact that I don't like bullies and I'm not afraid of bullies. I'm very much someone who's happy to bring the issue directly to you.
right,
And if I feel like you are punching down on people who don't deserve it, and especially if you're attacking them based on their identity, based on who they choose to love, based on whatever, like mind your own business
right,
and stop monetizing hate like
right.
that. It's disgusting.
Exactly. And so from my take, living over in Norman, and I saw all the attacks on the Tulsa School District, union schools. I saw those things happening, but it seemed like, from my perspective, that as soon as you put that challenge out to her, all of those things stopped. You shut her down.
Yeah, where's she been?
Yeah, you just shut her
She's been
completely
like
down.
Idaho or
Yeah,
something.
she's now, she's finding somewhere else to target because you basically you challenged and shut it down. So we'll move on because we need to talk about your current um, position that you're running for, which is Tulsa County Commissioner for District Number 2. So tell us a little bit about, where is Tulsa County District 22? Of course, it's in Tulsa County, which includes the city of Tulsa. But tell us more about that.
Sure. So it runs up and down the Arkansas River, encompasses most of downtown, and shoots out over, I keep doing the little thumbs up. It shoots out into West Tulsa, goes out into Sand Springs, into a little bit more rural suburb area. It comes down south into the Jinx area, and it's pretty choppy, like all districts are.
Right.
But it's a great district. It all of our districts have about equal citizens within them, or equal population. That's just how Oklahoma does things.
Sure.
But it's an open seat this year, this cycle. The former commissioner has left for another race. And so this is the first time in a long time that this is actually, being seen as a competitive seat, because we have so many people vying for it. So I'm pretty excited about the opportunity. I think, it's our one Democratic stronghold of the three, which is a little confusing to me because it happens. So they're spread out. So this seat, the election is always going to fall in line with the presidential.
Right.
And it is our Democratic stronghold. So that's interesting to me. And so you look at districts 1 and 3, those always happen in a midterm year.
Right.
So for me, I'm like, yes, I want to win, because we have the opportunity to partner, with municipalities to do all of these great things, to advocate. We get one vote to put people on boards. But I'm like, okay, yes, this is step 1. Step 2, though, is let's flip one of these other seats in 2 years. Now we have majority control of the board for the first time, maybe ever, at least in my lifetime. And then let's see what kind of progress we can really bring through the county level once we have 2 Democrats on the board. Because I think it could be, a massive game changer for our county.
Right. Yeah. And you can have great impacts on many different subjects. And one of them that keeps hitting the news all the time is tribal sovereignty, and how tribal relations within Tulsa, through the I had it on the tip of my tongue, and then I've lost it now. But the McGirt decision has really brought about a big impact for how law enforcement and how the judicial system is going to enforce certain laws, and particularly those people that come off the tribes. So it's a great opportunity for you, and I'm looking forward to that. So talk to us a little bit about some of your platform. What are some of the things that you would really like to see changed? Because we've only got about 15 minutes left before we need to drop off here and let you go on about going back to your day-to-day operations. But talk to us a little bit about some of the platform that you're running on.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things for me that'll be across the board is just increasing transparency in this office.
Sure.
I would say if you just look at the website for the Tulsa County Commissioners, there's like a short little blurb on there, kind of given the top lines of what they do, but it doesn't really explain in any detail whatsoever. There's a wide range of decisions that they make that have serious impact on people's day-to-day lives. And so a big thing for me is going to be, bringing like live streaming meetings.
Oh yeah.
I'm always going to be someone who is working to bring the community with me wherever I go. So I've been saying I'm bringing the community with me into the commissioner's office, and we're definitely going to have unprecedented access. Folks on the ground, individual people are going to have great access to this. I also want to do a lot of education just to help people understand the functions of county government, how it actually impacts your day-to-day, because I've heard every single day so far, okay, this sounds great, but what does the county commissioners actually do?
Right.
And so that's going to be an important piece of my campaign, is just implementing that education piece. As far as some platform issues that are top of mind for me, affordable housing is a huge, huge thing on my list. I am currently a renter and aspiring homeowner. And I know there's a lot of folks out there like me who, are single parents and are looking at rent prices like, oh my gosh, like, how are we going to stay in the community we've been in? How are we going to stay in the city, even with the rent prices going up like they are? So that's a massive thing for me. Another big thing is childcare, and addressing as much as we can on the county level the childcare crisis that we're in, because there is a massive need for more affordable and safe childcare options in the whole country. Honestly, it's not just Oklahoma, but
Right.
it is definitely an issue here that impacts folks every single day. Think if you're a single parent who doesn't have a lot of family. I've been very blessed to have a mom who, has made being a grandma her second job. And I don't know what I would have done the last few years without her. I truly don't. And I know that is something that can very easily lead to some hard decisions having to be made when you don't either have access to good childcare, or you can't afford the childcare because it's like a mortgage payment sometimes.
Correct.
So that's very top of mind for me. Also, I want to look at youth programs and, just how can we build better wraparound services for teens before they end up like I did, which is, out on the streets and, getting into all kinds of trouble. Of course, we want to address, housing insecurity and homelessness for all of the people who are experiencing it already. But we also need to look at, okay, how can we put some steps into place so that people who are at risk of, getting into that kind of a situation, so that we can, create some kind of a safety net. Education is such a big deal. And, when we look at the housing insecurity that people are facing, like the correlation between those kinds of troubles within a family and those kinds of issues, and then teen dropout rates, they are right there with each other. There's absolutely a serious, significant correlation between the two. And so those are, my biggest items right now. Of course, everyone thinks roads and bridges whenever we talk about county government. And so that's a very important issue. We can't have people out here popping tires and potholes.
Right.
But for me, I really want to bring that perspective of, being a mom, being a single mom, having these different experiences that I've had. And I want to bring that perspective into this office because it's something that has not been represented there. This board, we set a lot of the priorities through the budget making. And when we've got, $14 million of the general fund going to the sheriff's department, and we have roughly $2 million going to social services, just feels like maybe our budget could be worked with a bit. A lot of social services, the supports that can be provided through adequate funding are going to benefit the sheriff's department too in so many ways, because when we help to heal social ails, they are less likely to manifest in ways that end up involving law enforcement. Economic development is always a frontline conversation for Tulsa. And, I think that one of the best ways we improve our economic development is by keeping people out of the criminal legal system.
Right.
And one of the best ways we do that is by supporting people through social services, making sure that things are communicated to them, that people know what's going on, what they have access to, how to access them, and removing some of the red tape to getting support. I'm a comms person. That's what I do. And so I think that that's a big change that I'll bring, is that, the communications department will have a consistent and highly engaged partner in me as we are talking about things, not just with the good things and proclamations and ribbon cuttings, but with everything. I want all decisions to be made with community input. And, through that education, it will also allow people to, when they see a neighbor who might be in need, they're going to know, they're going to have a better understanding of what programs are offered or what resources are out there. And, that's just one way we'll be able to lean in together to support each other.
So I'm going to change the subject just a little bit, not very much though, because this, I think, brings us to some of the advocacy. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it, but I thought for sure that I saw in part of your advocacy is that you were a vocal participant in the red handprint for Indigenous, to try to bring awareness to missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I thought for sure that I saw you with, a wide brimmed cap with the red handprint. And I can't find that image anywhere because I want to share that with everybody. Or am I dreaming that was?
No, it's definitely out there. I think if you Google Sarah Gray Tulsa McGirt Forum,
okay,
you'll probably find it. I did end up in the news in a couple of spots. So that forum was billed as a McGirt Victims Impact panel, and it was a very shameless move for the governor, for Kevin Stitt to do, because he basically used, grieving families of violent crimes as shields for what he was really trying to do, which was get sound bites for his campaign, villainize tribes. There were no tribal leaders up on that stage. It was like 8 district attorneys. And then his legal counsel was at the very end. So yes, that day, for me, I wasn't really sure how I expected that day to go. And I ended up on the front row with, auntie and uncle and some other folks. And I just decided, for me in that moment, like the most powerful thing that I could do was just to turn my back on him every time he spoke. So anytime he was up to the microphone speaking, I just stood and turned my back on him. It just happened, and I wasn't surprised, but it happened towards the end of it. He got a question from the audience, right? Quote unquote question from the audience. And I do PR. All right. I've done political PR. I know exactly what is going on because I have written many a question from the audience myself. So the question was how might McGirt impact property taxes? In that moment, I was just texting on my phone. I think I was tweeting probably. And I just looked up and I was like, there it is. That's what he's worried about. That's why we're all here, because he wanted the soundbite. It was campaign season. He wanted the soundbite so that that could become a commercial.
Right.
And, Steve Kunzweiler refused to answer. He said, I'm not here to talk about taxes. I'm here to talk about victims. And he's like pointing for his general counsel to answer. And so his general counsel goes to answer, but we just about drowned him out. I was so proud of my community in that day because there was not a usable piece of sound or video. I'm quite certain of it. There's just zero chance they got any good video collateral from that day. But I mean, we basically laughed him off stage. He turned heel and got out of there pretty quick. He left, I think, an hour early.
Right.
We just weren't having it. We weren't having it. We all got on the phone, got on the internet, told everybody he's coming here and he's going to use this as an opportunity to paint us as, these wild, dangerous Indians running around, making everybody scared. And
right.
I don't know. I think maybe for a little bit we thought, well, if that's what you want, like we can show up and we can give you the experience.
Well, it was great because again, you don't know how much I appreciate when I go online and I see, something about Sarah Gray, I'm just so impressed because
Thank you.
and it's not every day, but there are monumental decisions or impacts, I should say, that I see that happen within the state of Oklahoma. And I see so many of them, but some of the most impactful ones involve Sarah Gray. So I really
Oh
see
my
these things and
goodness.
I'm like, this is a serious issue. I mean, literally, we can talk about the Red Hand Indigenous and how there's so many people that are murdered and missing. And then there's no follow-up or very little follow-up. And we when we watched the movie, the one that just was released this year,
Oh, Killers of the Flower
Killers of
Moon.
yes, yeah. And we saw what was going on there. It was the same exact thing back then that's still happening today. And people are being taken advantage of just because they're indigenous, and just it's atrocious that's happening. We need to close this down, this conversation, not because we want to, but because we're just running out of time. And because we could carry on this conversation for a lot longer. But can you help me close this down? Give us your best candidate speech on why voters should vote for you.
So I'm Sarah Gray. I am the progressive candidate for Tulsa County Commissioner District 2. I am a communications professional. I'm an activist and a proud activist. I am a renter, an aspiring homeowner, and I am, above all else, a mom to 2 little boys. I've lived in Muskogee land for just about my whole life, born and raised here, and there were more times than not when I've had little more than hope in my community to keep me going through the day. And that has instilled in me a really deep sense of responsibility to give back to my community and to give back to the community that raised me. We hear all the time that county government is supposed to be the government that's closest to the people. And it's because it's your friend or your neighbor who's, the county commissioner on one of these really important boards. And I think always in Tulsa County, it has been a very select group of people who that's been true for. It has been their neighbor or their friend who has been on this board or been on the commissioner's board. But for the majority of us, we haven't really got to experience that yet. And so that's what our campaign is going to change. After I'm elected, you will have a friend and a neighbor who is sitting in the county commissioner's office. And I'm not going to be sitting there alone because, anyone who knows me will not be surprised to hear that my plan is to bring the community with me into the commissioner's office. There'll probably be plenty of people who say that to have this office, to be a county commissioner, you need to know everything. You need to have all of the experience. You need to be intimately aware with the day-to-day operations before you ever get there. And I just don't agree with that. I don't feel that I need to know everything there is to know to represent my community well. I don't feel like I need to, have worked directly in the office and under a commissioner to be successful in this position. I believe in distributed knowledge. I know that good governing happens when we have a whole network of folks from different walks of life, from different backgrounds, different professions, who all come together and they're bringing those experiences to the table. And so that's why I'm going to be a great county commissioner, because I have a great network of people in my life and it's only getting bigger and bigger every day. And it's important to me that we always have a huge group of folks sitting around the table. I want to build multiple tables because we don't have enough room. We're just going to keep piling them up. That's how good governing happens. That's how representative government happens. And, we have the opportunity to create that for ourselves in county government. Also, my final note is that I have no intention of getting elected just so I can sit there as the sole Democratic vote and say, I object, or, that's not the end game here. The end game here is that we make this big change by bringing the community into the commissioner's office with my election. And in 2 years, we're flipping a seat and we're taking majority control over that commissioner's office. We're going to have 2 votes. We're going to be able to rock and roll and do all kinds of amazing things that have never been done before in Tulsa County. And that is my goal for the future. It doesn't stop with me. I know I'm walking a path that hasn't been paved before. But I hope that once I get there, the brush is all cleared for who's coming next.
Oh, man. That was amazing. Thank you so much. And everybody, please join me in supporting Sarah Gray. Again, her website is Gray for OK. That's GRAYFOROK.com. I will take a screenshot so that everybody can see that exactly where to go. This website is, again, it's a work in progress. And as soon as we get the information on what the Act Blue account is, we will make sure that we include that, because we need to financially support Sarah in her endeavor to become the county commissioner for Tulsa County District number 2. It's so important for us to be able to flip this seat and have a progressive Democrat who is in place there, but somebody who is willing to work with the other side to get things accomplished as well. And then, like she said, as soon as she can get her success story going, we can flip another seat in Tulsa, and then we can actually make more meaningful things happen besides just this one. So thanks so much, Sarah, for being on Coffee with Democrats. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you on with us today.
Thank you for having me. This was a good time. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks so much. And everybody, we're going to be back on. I'm going to make an announcement that from now until the election, with the exception of a few weeks for my vacation time, we're going to start doing Coffee with Democrats. So every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from now to the election, Coffee with Democrats is going to have somebody on to talk about their candidates, because we got so many amazing Democrats throughout Oklahoma that are coming on board this year that are running for office. And so we're going to get as many of those people, if not all of them, on between now and November, so that we can promote and help those candidates and everybody who is running as a Democrat in the state of Oklahoma. We're going to promote them as much as we can and support them as much as we can. So until next time, we're on Coffee with Democrats, everybody, please be safe.